What is up, everyone? My name is Brad, otherwise known as Bradsver, and we are finally back with another week of unable to stop doing a certain thing. Teddy, what is that?
We can't stop snapping, and we are so back after my extended vacation and then mismatch of our schedules because you, sir, have also been doing an incredible Floridian activity. Hopefully, now a
Yeah.
tradition. SnapCon?
Yes. It was a blast. So there was SnapCon this weekend. It was in Tampa. I am a local here, so it was easy for me to make it. And I'm good friends with Felicity and Default Dan, who pretty much organized the entire thing. Was kind of talking with them since the inception of the idea. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna go, and definitely gonna cast and things like that. And that's what I did for the majority of the weekend was cast. It was
Nice.
nice when we got to the top 8. I was no
Yeah.
longer casting because Binks and D Money, who were there, both got knocked out prior to that, so they were able to actually cast. And look, I'm not going to take offense to that. When you have
Yeah.
big names like Binks and D Money for your top 8 stream, please just use them. It
Yeah, get
doesn't
them
hurt my
featured,
feelings.
right? They're such fun personalities when you get them on
Yeah.
the mic, on the camera. Is this casting just for the stream, or was there any live viewership experience?
So there was do you mean like live as in like people there? Or
Yeah, so
like
people who were in attendance to be able to
yeah, yeah.
watch what's going on
Oh,
or
okay.
follow.
So, yeah, I'll probably add these pictures in post, but there are two stages, okay, and we had two streams going on at once. There was Felicity's stream on the
Yeah,
main stage,
I tried to catch a little
which
bit of
was
that.
yeah, and then there was Default Dan's stage, our stream, which was pretty much the main portion of the tournament, being like the round robin, like just the pods, and then once we got into top 32 for day 2. Basically, Felicity had one half of the stream going on with that, and then Dan had the other half, where they were going simultaneously for both sides of the bracket. And the way it worked was on Dan's side, we had a setup with two iPads, and that was how they were playing. And then we basically had those streamed there, commentating over it. On Felicity's side, on the main stage, the bigger stage, it was actually two full PC setups, to where you had both players on the new PC client,
Nice.
and then the overlays like that. And then basically everyone was just watching them play. We
Yeah.
had a big projector on the side so the audience could see the game and everything.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
We had noise canceling headphones for the players, so they
Was
couldn't hear commentating.
was the
And stuff.
projection on a delay, or was it like right
It
with
was
them?
it was positioned where they can't see it.
Okay.
Like there was no way for them to see it. They did a great job of setting up the stage and everything like that. But it was such a cool live experience
Yeah.
because when I'm sitting there, I'm talking to some people in the corner, and I'm like, we're going over lines. We're seeing like, oh, this is where they need to go. This is where they need to go.
Yeah.
And then like we're seeing them try to think and like kind of do their thing. They drag and pull back, and we're going like, okay,
Yes.
so they're thinking this. Does that math work out? And we're going through all the numbers and shit. It was such a blast to actually just
Well, it's
watch live like an esport event. It was cool.
especially because it's the side by side, which I feel like in some of these casts you do get like the hand of both players, but you don't get to see that thinking of them, dragging, because
So
that's what everybody does is they think very
yeah.
visually and snap to plan out turns, and one person's perspective you always end up missing.
Yeah, so that is kind of how it worked here because you have basically so you got the main battlefield of one person's perspective, right? And then it basically cropped the other person's hand on top.
Okay, nice.
So that was the one downside where you can't see perfectly both people thinking a lot, but because you could see the other person's hand and you can
Yeah.
see enough above the hand, you can basically understand. Okay, they're dragging like this card here, here, and
Yeah.
here. So it was enough where you can absolutely be like, okay, they're going left with Chavez, right? Something like that.
Nice.
But it was such a blast. I mean, overall, it wasn't just the tournament. We had other events going on too.
Yeah.
We had the WSF thing, the World Snap Federation or whatever that Dan does with Super Tech God and stuff like that, like the wrestling mashup thing. It was funny. It was cute. I was just chilling in the back. Then there was Snapperty. It's a Jeopardy
Yes.
spinoff essentially, like a team thing of that. There was like Pictionary for Marvel Snap and stuff, like all these different cool games that people could watch and stuff. There were cool panels in which like you had like Binks and like D Money, W, like all these great minds talk about like, you know, deck construction or like meta evaluation and like, you know, like little tips and tricks, and like took Q&A from like people there of like, you know, what do you do in this situation? How do you approach this and stuff like that. Those VODs are all still up, by the way. If you go on twitch.tv/Felicity or twitch.tv/DefaultDan, you can still check everything out there. Now,
did it feel big, or did it feel like cozy? This is like the small crew of diehards who made it.
It felt bigger than I expected.
Okay.
We had around 200 attendees.
Nice.
It was a pretty good size.
Yeah.
So being able to, you know, see a lot of people, just not just, you know, obviously content creators, but pretty much across the board, just like average people, get to hang out, talk to them, and like get their experience, or like you kind of get their understanding of what they're talking about, or like what they're enjoying there. It's super cool, and like it was a little bit of both though. There was a little bit of that coziness because like, you know, we're all there to, you know, talk about Marvel Snap or Play Snap
Right.
and things like that, but otherwise, yeah, it was interesting. It was really cool, and I can't wait to see what happens next year because, funnily enough, the day before day one, Felicity got hit up by like 3 or 4 other people for like companies saying like, we'll sponsor next year, because they saw the numbers of like the turnout and stuff like that.
Let's go.
So
because this
you know,
year was no like high profile sponsors, it was just kind of community.
So the biggest sponsor was Impulse Gaming.
Okay.
They're an up and coming like team of like,
Yep.
you know, to do more organized sports and things like that, or esports I should say, like events, tournaments, things like that. We're actually talking with them to look at more tournaments to be expanded on. So maybe you'll see me cast for some of their tournaments and things like that. So we'll see how that turns out in the future.
Nice.
But otherwise, I mean, yeah, there was a good handful of sponsors. It was Impulse Gaming. There was like a supplement company for like a G Fuel kind of thing, but
Yep.
not, of course, not G Fuel. But it sucks because originally Felicity and Dan, they reached out to like, of course, Ben Brode
Yeah.
and like other members of Second Dinner, and Ben Brode
Right.
months and months ago said, I'd love to, can't do it that week, I have something.
To be able
And
to
that's
make
what
the
he said
appearance.
specifically.
Gamescom.
And see, here's the thing. We didn't know it was Gamescom.
Yeah.
Because as we got closer and closer, we had a few Second Dinner employees confirm saying we'll be there. Like we
Okay.
can make it work.
Nice.
And once it got closer, those Second Dinner employees basically were like, sorry, we just found out we have to go somewhere and it's on that weekend. And then
We're
we
going
found out
international.
we found this week it was Gamescom essentially. So hopefully next year we can do a bit more digging and hopefully have a bit more transparency between Second Dinner and everyone to kind of get a
Yeah.
better like footing of like, you know, there's a bit, because I didn't know Gamescom was that week, this weekend, and that kind of sucks.
No, I mean the whole culture of like the gaming conventions after COVID has like really fallen off. Whereas before there would be like a lot of hype building into these.
Yeah.
Which we still got. I mean, I think. Do we want to talk a little bit about Gamescom and especially the Second Dinner updates that we've gotten? Do a little tangent
Yeah,
here.
I was gonna say the Twitch drops was really cool.
It was nuts.
Did you get your variants?
I've got all my variants.
Nice.
I'm loving them. I think they're all duplicates though of cards I already have variants for, so I don't know how much
Oh,
I
yeah.
will play them, but I'm quite happy with the system that they had set up. I thought when they brought in drops that we were just going to get like another loot box system, and you were going to get like honestly a pretty low value box drop periodically for watching. And so this like set demarcation of you just are guaranteed this stuff for this long. I like that. And I think that
Yeah.
overall they're being pretty generous with the extra currency they're throwing into the economy. It makes me a little worried that they're only going to come around for special events rather than be a month-to-month thing.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
But though maybe we could be surprised and it's a month-to-month thing, but it's like not as like substantial. Like
Yeah.
you get the guaranteed hits, you know, with like the bigger events, like especially like the 1 year coming up, right, in just a few
Right.
months.
I mean,
actually
I would.
just a couple months,
Yeah.
2 months.
Exactly. If they wanted to roll back to just like the loot box system, if they just gave you like 1,000 points of progress, so 1 box on your battle pass, I'd be fine with that. You watch for like a couple hours and you can earn up to 5 to 10 free roll boxes out of there. Maybe you go all the way up to 20 of like a over the course of watching, because that means on average you'll get one new variant. That'd be great. There's gold in those boxes. Hey, that's hard to be able to get. And man, it turned the watch numbers for Snap upside down. It's wild looking at the Twitch pages now, because
Dexter
there's like
had 28 at peak
Yes.
for viewers. Can we talk about the great opportunity that secondary? So we, I don't remember if it was with us in particular. I don't know if I don't think we started at this point, but I can tell you with Chris over in Snap on Ego, we were in agreement with Regis, who made a video on this a couple months ago. It wasn't. What was the event? The most recent big event? Was it Comic-Con? Was that it? Basically,
yes.
it was with
we had a lot of
it
announcements out of Comic-Con.
It coincided with the announcement of Conquest, and Regis made a good video saying they dropped the ball on announcing Conquest because they had a panel and everything, and essentially just introduced Conquest to people as if they knew already what Marvel Snap was, how to play, and things like that. They didn't show really any gameplay. They showed like the UI and like the menu and explained Conquest and the rules. But chat was going like, "What the f- is this?" And like, everyone else was like, "We don't know what this is," or things like that.
This is a mobile game I heard about a year ago. I'm here for X whatever,
So that's a criticism I actually agreed with. We talked about it before with like Chris and things like that. Of like, this is they definitely dropped the ball. This time around, though, for Gamescom, I think they learned their lesson, because not only did they do the Twitch drops and coinciding with the new PC launch, and they're like, this is actually showcasing the game itself, and like on Gamescom, and then they got big sponsorships for big streamers. Hassan Piker, the biggest streamer, and I know he's not number one anymore. I know it's like it was Kai, who's now on Kick, and then it's like, what's his name, Jay something. He's a Rainbow Six streamer on Twitch. He's number one now. Look, consistently though, Hassan is top 5 all the time and has been for a few years. He's a huge name. You got him to play Marvel Snap. Now, it seemed very scripted to me, and it seemed like kind of disingenuous, but get your bag, get your money. I understand. But still, to 20+ thousand viewers showing off a game, most people are like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to go download this and play it. And then
because I think that Snap has something that you can dive into immediately. Like if you're watching for another game and you see Snap come on, and if it's a personality that you like watching anyway, I think that you're going to be able to get what Snap is. Whereas there are other games that like I could watch somebody that I like play for like half an hour and be like, this is not, I don't get it, But I think that Snap, just they're going to see a bunch of games, they're going to get the core loop, they're going to get at least one moment that it's like really intense, and they're making a call if they're snapping or retreating, and they're like, okay, that was like peak right there. Yeah.
And unlike games like Magic, for example, the barrier to entry from a viewer standpoint is significantly better. So like if you're gonna randomly just hop into like arenas that like there's like the Magic World Championship right on Arena, and like visually the game looks amazing, and you would think it's somewhat easy to follow because you're like, cards are there, they're playing it out, but then once you start watching, you're like, I don't know what that does. Like it doesn't show explicitly like the card text and everything when you're playing it, and your players are playing so fast and the commentators are talking so fast in those kind of tournaments, you're just like lost. Or Snap, if Second Dinner, I should say when Second Dinner takes the reins on their own sanctioned events for esport type of tournaments, right? Because it's a matter of time. Like they will. There's no way they don't.
They're such a small team. I think it's actually a discussion on if they do or not. I think Ben Brode might want to keep the company so small that they'll leave it third party, but I don't know.
Well, it could be third party, but they could have a hands-on approach, and like it's underneath them in the sense of like directly like, yes, they could go get another team or an experienced esport team to run it, but it's a sanctioned event from them. It's not like Snapchat.
Fair enough.
Like our tournament.
I mean,
whatever.
It was like Conquerors, right?
Yeah, like event like that, like but actually like a big tournament with prize money and like actually has like a pro league system or whatever, and not the basically speed run that it was in that event. But when they do that and that comes to fruition, simply all they have to do is play a quick 180-second thing of a quick explanation of this is what Snap is, this is how you play, this is the objective, because I don't think you need more than that to give a quick synopsis for players on how to play. No. And then between like breaks, when like you have those 5-minute breaks, whatever, just play that.
Yeah, I think that you could even have like the pinned comment of like snap in 60 seconds if someone's hopping in and wants to know more, and then you tap on that, you get their highly polished ad breakdown, and then you roll back into the stream to see how whoever's doing.
Yeah, and of course, if you have the right commentators, of course, like with those events. Quick aside,
it does get hard with the commentators, right, on like how much they couch for new audience and how much that feels like it's being dumbed down for the competitive core that's watching you anyway.
See,
like I get this a little bit with pickleball right now. I love watching pickleball, but the commentators treat it like they're explaining the most basic rules every time, and I'm like, I'm already on a level of like, I care about these players, I followed their storylines, I want a little bit more of the pickleball details. I'm not just bouncing
so I
in.
think the way that I've been casting, and also, by the way, it was I already do the casting for Snap.fan and stuff like that. It was great doing it in person, being able to do it side by side with guests, with Eddie, with Yoda, like all these different great content creators. There's nothing better than casting in person with people, because those physical cues and things like that, like the chemistry is a lot easier to run with, because you can actually see the other person. You can be ready and know when to jump in, when to talk. It's not like that through the digital component.
Yeah.
But anyway, the way that I always do it is I typically lean more towards play-by-play as opposed to color commentary.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone, of course. Like if there's a dialogue to be had between your casters, then you have it, right? You can. But the way I like to do it is,
if you find a lull, there's like a point where you can fit it in.
But I like to essentially, and for example, Eddie had never casted before, and I was having him be my color commentator, and he was like, well, what do I need to do? And I'm like, look, I'm going to basically talk about the game itself and give you softball questions to answer. And a lot of times some of these questions on purpose by design will seem basic-ish to more veteran players. That's by design, because I want you to have an easy question to answer, an easy thing to quickly give a little explanation on of why something happens. That's going to be for the first portion of the match, like in a conquest mode, for example, right? It's what we're talking about.
Yep.
First portion of the match, you do a lot of that kind of thing, right? Especially while it's early, there's a lot of touch and feel between the two players. A lot of early retreats. There's not very often is there going to be the big 4 cube, 7 cube, 8 cube kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Once you get into the mid game, then you can start expanding on lines. You can start talking a bit more on okay, this is more intricate lines of play. Because now that we've brought some people up to speed on what these decks are doing, we can start getting a bit more in depth. And then once you get into the late game, where it's this is where they need to really buckle down, you can start getting even more in depth. That doesn't mean you abandon those easy, quick analysis, because you have to find a middle ground. You can't just have all in on the pickleball thing where it's it's super easy, goes it's you're spoon feeding people too much, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to bore Teddy over here, but you also don't want everything going over everyone's head, looking like Zach Galifianakis and The Hangover, have all the numbers going by and stuff. And that's a tough thing. And also, again, no dead air, constant communication going on.
Right.
Casting is the most fun puzzle of an activity that it's my favorite thing to do. It's why I like doing podcasts. It's just I like talking about the thing more so than playing, actually. But it's hard.
I mean, it's super fun. It's super fun. And I feel like even at the end of the Conquest match, that's where you can almost go all in on the emotion, the stakes, and when the big play comes out, you just try and go crazy, and you're trying to because the veteran players, they know the lines. The beginner players are okay, this is building the intensity, and that's the energy that makes it interesting to watch rather than play, or to cast rather than play.
I mean that's what Guest is great at. Guest, so typically if I'm casting alongside Guest, for those who know, I'm talking about Guest Gaming from Snap.fan.
Head writer, right?
Yeah. He also does some commentary and stuff like that as well. But if I'm casting with him, he usually takes the reins for color commentary. And like I said, that's usually the split, play-by-play color commentary with some deviations here or there. But once we get into turn 6, I hand it to him because he loves doing the auctioneer type of rapid fire, and this
Yeah.
comes down here, 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 and like for the last thing. That's his favorite thing to do. So
Yeah.
I like being able to hand that over to him, and then basically the roles kind of switch. He becomes the play-by-play for turn 6, and then I'm the one going wow, like that kind of. So like it's like I love that dynamic. I love being able to flip back and forth and that kind of thing. But it just you got to find the right person to cast with, and it's hard because you can have two very skilled casters, right? But you never know until you get in the booth together if you have the chemistry to actually make it sound enjoyable or entertaining for the viewers.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that Twitch Rivals happened right before SnapCon, and
Yep.
I think it kind of blew the doors open on the meta with a brand new deck, this Forge Brood Absorbing Man combo. It was brilliant because in the Twitch Rivals format was a veteran Snap content creator paired with an outsider. And so players were looking for decks that were not only competitive, but also were very easy to teach people on. And this
Yeah.
deck is smooth as butter. You just pair up these combo on reveals and you try and generate these tokens with these massive bodies. It's come up. I think it's going to be a meta evergreen. Did SnapCon hit us with any new meta arrivals or meta surprises?
So meta surprises, I don't know if that can be said. Now we did see a handful of people playing.
Brad
in
is
top
like, I was
32.
not surprised. I knew these decks were good. Nobody else did, but I was not surprised.
Well, we saw a lot of the classic decks, right? We saw, I mean, there was a handful of stuff like top 32 where you saw like maybe like a Jean Grey Guardians list, right? But that person got knocked out pretty early. I think they made it to top 16. They made it to round 2 and they got knocked out.
I'm still holding out on the Jean Grey. Like, she was good. People just haven't cracked it yet.
Like that lane control kind of thing, right? That was one. Looking at like top 4. You had a Silky Smooth variation by Flat Soda. He got
Nice.
4th place. That was running a Black Bolt stature package in the top end instead of your typical Chavez stuff. You had the Jolly Roger, who made 3rd place. He was playing a X-23 Deadpool Destroyer
X-23
deck
makes an entry. Yes, let's go.
with
the
with
Deadpool
Nimrod.
Destroyer? Okay.
Yep, had Nimrod,
He's
Null,
fit
Destroyer.
everything?
No, there's no death, and there's an Invisible Woman as well. So it's
my
very interesting,
gosh.
cool list. He has Shuri in there.
Why do you run Invisible Woman?
It's so that you can basically, the play in the late game.
Taskmaster?
No, there's that's one thing, of course, like right. But then there's the other thing of, you know how you can usually throw out like Carnage and then like Venom to have like Nimrod get eaten and then caught again to spread it across.
Play it early.
So you can play it early
No
underneath Invisible
way.
Woman. Another one is we learned this as a classic trick during the bounce meta. He's running Killmonger as well. So if you run against these Haivo lists, then they they have to whiff on armor or whatever. But there might be enough decks that are running Sunspot and things like that, or Kitty in other lists.
Yeah.
You can do the classic like, I'm gonna just stick Killmonger underneath Invisible Woman and get him in the end game, right?
Well, that's what it is, like Thanos and then the Silky Movement
That
deck.
too, yeah, yep.
Put a lot of ones
so
down.
That got number 3. 2nd place was W. He was in the finals was essentially a mirror match. Some minor differences between the two. I'll go over that in just a second. So W was running his Hulk Wave for High Evo. So that's your Sunspot, Nebula, Misty Knight, Armor, Jeff, Mr. Fantastic, or he was running the Mr. Fantastic variant. Running Wave.
I love Wave here because that lets
Yep.
you still pass on the final turn when you drop Hulk. And so everything activates one more turn. It is really satisfying.
Yes. So Wave on 5 is awesome for this because, again, like you said, you still get those 2 energy for Float, for Sunspot. Misty Knight still goes off. Cyclops still goes off. He's also running Claw in the list as well for a little extra reach. We saw with the recent resurgence of Thanos ongoing type of list. Claw has actually been very good. It's one of those cards that we talked about this a couple weeks ago, where it's. I know you're shaking your head, but Claw, and I asked him straight up, Mike, how has Claw been? Because that was the one that stuck out. And he's like, it has been one of the best cards in the deck. He swears by it. He says it's very good. I have the utmost faith in W. He's a fantastic player. To give you a quick,
But
for
why
those
not
of you,
run Professor X?
I think he just wanted the extra power. I mean, you get extra power in the single lane, you get extra reach in the other lane
Okay.
for locked locations. It's just, I guess it just lines up better with his play. It's also a better late game drop if you don't want to play Chavez or Hulk, because there are
True.
situations where you play, like let's say there's a stormed location, right?
No, it is a classic with Wave, right? That you then play
Mhm.
something that affects multiple lanes. The opponent's locked to one card.
Yeah. So there's that, and then like look, that deck looked really cool. And I wanted to say real quick, in the finals, a little spoiler, if you want to watch it, go check out Felicity's VOD to see the finals. It was a great match. It came down to a 50-50 is basically what happened. So
man.
that's all I'll say if you want to check out the rest. And then the winner was Rocco on, like I said, kind of a mirror match. It's a high Evo deck similar to the high Evonaut that we've seen running around recently, but no Infinite. Instead, it's still doing the She-Hulk thing and Hulk, but it's opting to run Legion instead, still doing the magic thing so that you can go Leech on 5, and then float on 6, play Hulk, She-Hulk, and then kind of go to town from there, right? And then still have
Right.
that
So if you're
one
wondering
energy
what
flow.
why you play the Leech there is because you're wanting to be able to take away the opponent playing Legion or something to remove Limbo from you. They can't get that turn 6 surprise on you if you're leeching, and then it also is just devastating to especially destroy decks. All of their big finishers just roll over and die.
Yeah. This exact matchup is what Jolly Roger lost to in the semis. So again, like you said, it disrupts the destroy matchup, and that's what happened to Jolly Roger, unfortunately, where it just kind of messed him up quite a bit. And the other thing I like about the inclusion of Legion over Infinite here is the flexibility of saying, I'm running Magic. I can go into the late game, into that turn 7 if I want to, but if I see the window to just drop Legion and take away Limbo on turn 6, that's still impactful as well. I mean, if you just play Legion on his own on turn 6, or maybe you do a float on turn 4 to do Legion She-Hulk, well, no, that wouldn't be enough energy. But no, it would be on float on turn 5. That would be 5 and 1.
Yep, exactly. You can Legion Shulk. It's
so
nutty.
That'd be
it's really good. And those, like, that is peak Snap. Your heart is in your throat because everything doubles. So you're not just playing for the cubes, you're playing for the max end game value, like one way or the other. If they get you, they get you. And if you get them, it's a game flipper, man. I just recently won a gold conquest off of Legion on Vault.
I just farmed 3 back-to-back infinite tickets this weekend with my old trusted Infomaniac deck, with a slight change. So Teddy, I know you did a video on that deck not too long ago after we talked about it, and you included Medusa in that. And I ended up going into the same direction. I'm including Medusa now, but do you know, after some deliberation and talking with Guest over a pizza dinner on night 1, can you guess what 3-drop I went with?
I mean, you probably brought in was it already running Spidey-Man, or is Spidey-Man coming in instead of the, I had Stegron in there as almost a little bit of a meme. He was fine, but Spidey instead of Stegron.
We talked about Spider-Man, but then we landed on Beast. And Beast has been incredibly interesting.
Medusa,
a 3/4 body.
Hawkeye pickups?
Picks up Hawkeye for another trigger, and now he's 0 cost, right? Especially if you think there's going to be a Killmonger, you can pick him up or whatever. Killmonger's not a big deal against this deck anyway, because you're only running the single 1-drop, but making that a 1/7 is pretty nice. And then, of course, picking up Medusa again to either go right back on the middle, become a 1/8, or you can spread her power somewhere else and just take the 1/5, like a Titania, essentially. It's been very good. I've been loving it, and still doing the Black Bolt stature thing. I cut White Queen from the list. That was like the odd man out for me. But yeah, the deck has been running really nicely. It still has, I guess, a little bit of the issue of I don't want to say it's Beast doesn't make it so it's solved in a sense of like your power output, and no one's gonna really expect this deck, right? I'm sure
No,
most people
guys, if you
playing
don't
against are
know,
like,
this deck is running Adam Warlock and Kang the Conqueror.
yeah, and but the from my perspective from piloting, it feels like the power output is a little bit solved in terms of
Yeah.
how much you can really put out.
Yep.
That's my only downside to the deck. But otherwise, the info you get with Mirage and things like that's been really cool. But that's another thing about SnapCon that I loved is being able to sit down and talk with guests, Super Tech God, and stuff like that, and like go to dinner, like like talk to like Binks and like just none, of course, snap related things, right, and non-snap related things. Like Binks and I talked about the zoo at the dinner last night, but to sit down and talk with all these people and figure out these little puzzles of like these decks. Like Guest had been working on for a while. He's been doing an Arnim Zola Wong Black Panther deck,
Yeah.
but it's also running Silver Surfer stuff. And that was a really fun puzzle to sit down and try to like, okay, let's figure out how to make this work, because like these pieces do kind of work together. So where's that early game change? So I think we landed on like Echo and like Forge being in there because he's already running Brood, and that's a
Forge
backup
100%.
plan. He's running Absorbent Man 2 for that as well. So he has the Forge Brood Absorbent Man backup plan if he doesn't get into Surfer, and he can still then at that point go into things like Black Panther Zola. The lines with that deck was really cool. But yeah, stuff like that, just being able to meet with these people and that I've had this relationship with like online, in person, and just talk Marvel Snap is like the best thing about the weekend.
Oh man, I hope we get guilds in a way that kind of brings that to everyone, not just those in the content creator space, or not just those who are going to go to SnapCon, but just then you have like more of a reason to plug in on Discord and talk about decks, and especially if they can bring a kind of head-to-head focus that requires you to use a large amount of your collection rather than just whatever the hot new meta deck is, because that's solving the puzzle of like, what's my second or third string deck actually going to be able to do up against theirs. Then I think things get super interesting.
Dude, I mean, it'd be really cool if, like, could you imagine if there were, like, guild-based tournaments, like, within the game, within the client itself, not just, like, whatever. And,
we
like, you have
the technology.
Like, yeah, and, like, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be, like, two-headed giant type kind of thing. I don't know how that would ever work if they did that. Be cool, don't get me wrong. Hopefully that can be a thing at some point. But, being able to just say, like, hey, you have 3 people in your guild, you all, like, join a little lobby together, you find another guild to play against, and then you essentially all either play at the same time or, like, spectate each other or whatever. I don't know how it would work. Maybe if we eventually get different modes, like a draft, you have, like, one person playing draft, another person playing, like, Series 1 and 2 deck only, and the other one person playing, like, the meta, right? Being your 3 formats, and you're like, okay, Teddy, I trust you. You're an amazing drafter in this game. You're my drafty. Go.
Yep.
Go do that. And then, like, that sounds so fun, and I the future looks so bright for the game. It's just a matter of having these things come to fruition, right?
Yep. Oh man, I'm excited. So, stay tuned. SnapCon. When can we expect like an announcement of next year?
I can't tell you yet. I'm not sure. There's still a lot of things to figure out.
Is it just like a couple month lead time?
So we originally announced SnapCon earlier this year in like February or March, I believe. Maybe
so it's
April.
like 6 month lead time.
So that was typically when it happened, but it also was like around the time that they originally thought of the idea for it.
Yeah.
So technically, Felicity already announced it because on the sign off she did say "see you next year."
Okay.
So that's kind of her way of saying like we plan on this to be a recurring thing.
Is she the best place if our listeners are interested in next year? Follow Felicity X, Twitter,
on
able
Twitch,
to get
on X, and Twitter, all that good stuff. Yeah, absolutely go follow her
for dates and tickets next year.
Also follow Default Dan as well. He'll be able to give updates and everything in that regard. And of course, follow myself and Teddy over here. Gotta give us some love too. We're gonna try and get Teddy to go there. Oh, they need to be reminded.
Oh man, if I'm going, then we're definitely getting a Can't Stop Snapping live episode.
Yes, I'm trying to get Chris to go too because I want to do that too. I'm like, look, if we can get a live episode for any of our podcasts, it'd be amazing. Dan already talked about that. He's like, yes, absolutely. We will do that. So we already have the blessing from the organizers for SnapCon. So all we got to do is just actually get you here.
Exactly. We were just passing like ships in the night. I was worn out and motion sick from my days at Hollywood and Universal. So I was out, man. I was out. Couldn't take any more. Though I could take more of the Florida weather, man. It was hotter in Kansas City, but I digress. We should probably talk about our brand new cards.
Yep, so we're going to head over to your channel now to talk about Silver Samurai coming out this week, as well as if it's a smash or pass, I guess, or snapper pass, I guess it should be called, for this week's Spotlight.
Drew Berry has trademarked that. We got to be careful.
Drew Berry's a friend of the show. He's not going to do anything about it. But yes, fine. You can have the trademark Drew Berry. We'll say snapper pass, trademark by Drew Berry. See if that's going to be the go for this week. So see you guys there.
Welcome back, my friends, to Can't Stop Snapping here with Bradsford. We just wrapped up our conversation on SnapCon, which sounded incredibly exciting. Huge tournament. You got a lot of casting in. Saw a lot of the existing meta, and now we're looking ahead. Silver Samurai right on the horizon. This guy's getting, I feel like everybody has been saying, oh, this is the underrated card, and he's going to be great. So I don't think he's actually underrated at this point. But what's your hot take here on Silver Samurai?
I think he's going to be much harder to figure out than people think. I think the fact that he discards the lowest power card and not the lowest cost card creates for some interesting interactions.
A lot of people, I think, are expecting him to be just a duplicate of Colleen Wing. He is not a duplicate of Colleen Wing, my friends. He is a 4/5 on reveal. Each player, Moon Knight text, discards the lowest power card from their hand. So, I clearly meant to be able to synergize alongside Dakin with the Shard Blade, getting that cut out. And then can still synergize with Swarm, but you gotta be careful that you don't have any 2s or 0s, right?
Yeah, but then you can't really go into your buff hand. This is where it gets weird, right? Like if you want to make use of your Swarm, for example.
Yep.
And you want to do the Nakia Okoye, buff your hand, that kind of thing, and make him 2/5s. Well, now they're probably not the lowest power thing in your hand anymore, so that kind of sucks.
Right, whatever you're drawing in could be lower than what the Nakia buffed, and that throws off your curve. You got to be really careful if that's the route that you're going to take. Specifically, what your other enablers for that deck is. I think we're already kind of piecing around just what the straight discard deck might look like. And you're often looking at a power multiplier like the Lockjaw or the Wong. And if you don't get those to the board in time, Silver Samurai is going to be cutting those instead of your Swarm. And Dracula particularly is looking very vulnerable. You have to have a very tight turn play. You have to have the Dracula down before you get him out.
Yes, if we look at a typical list right now for discard, you see pretty much in the 1-drop spots either Nebula or Sunspot. It's up to your own
We're X23 now.
Pick. That I would say probably not. I think she's actually really bad in discard because it's typically a one shot, and the window for getting the extra 1 energy. There's not very many.
No, that's fair. She's not. But so on the one hand, she's nice when you hit her with the MODOK, and then you just have Wolverine and X23 jumping to the board. But otherwise, getting the energy cheat, they don't care about it.
Yeah, so typically you have essentially, Nebula, Sunspot, maybe X23 in the 1-drop, Morbius, Wolverine, Swarm, Colleen Wing, Lady Sif, Dracula, Absorberman, MODOK, APOC, and a lot of times you've been seeing, of course, then Dakin as well. I missed a couple cards because it's Dakin and Chavez to round it out. That's why you have Absorberman now to basically get that. And I'm thinking that instead of... What would you cut in this typical list to bring in Silver Samurai? Because I think this is the most natural home people are going to try first because it curves out so nicely. Because then on 3 you go Dakin, on 4 Silver Samurai, hit one of their cards, buff Dakin to a 3/8. That's really nice.
Yeah.
And then you can just kind of go from there and figure out what you need to do. It is directly competing with Dracula in that slot, right? Because but what we saw with Dakin give discard it gave a nice bridge for those awkward hands where you have Lady Sif as your 3-drop, right, on turn 3. And it's like, wow, the highest cost card in my hand is MODOK or Dracula. This really sucks. I cannot play her. Dakin can now fill the gap for those awkward hands.
Yes.
In the same way, I think Silver Samurai could alongside Dracula for the 4-drop, right?
Dracula is so strong though. Like,
well, I'm not saying you cut him. I'm not saying you cut him. I'm saying you would run both in this scenario. It's just for those games where you don't have Dracula.
Then you're super happy to play Samurai. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I just don't know who you cut from there. Like beyond that, like, is Absorber Man the one that's the odd man out? Because Absorber Man to me is really just there for Dak and Absorber Man, right? Currently, to get like the huge Dakin. And
I don't like the Absorbing Man. Well, honestly, I like Absorbing Man to be able to clip onto Silver Samurai, but I think if you're running the rest of this shell and you are not running a force multiplier card like the Wong or the Lockjaw, which those could be looking pretty strong. I don't know, Silver Samurai with the 5 power on his own body, you probably want him sticking to the board. So I think that the Absorbing Man goes, and then you just play Silver Samurai if you get the opportunity here. You also might be trading 1-drops around. I don't know. Like, even I think Nebula is pretty safe because you're trying to be able to hit the Shard, and then if not the Shard, you're trying to hit Swarm, or the Wolverine, which any of these works out pretty well.
I do want to ask you, do you think it could be as simple as a new discard deck comes out that's more so stat-based discard as opposed to just like Draco discard? It feels more combo-ish to me. You really want to have those setups of like MODOK into APOC and things like that, the swarms, and the lines are very clear for that, right?
Yes.
What if it's something that's more so like you're running, of course, Silver Samurai and things like that, and Dakin, that's your starting point, right? That initial 3 to 4 curve is very nice, but then you're also going Black Bolt. You have Stature in the list for that. You also maybe run Moon Knight as another pivot, and you run, of course, Ghost Rider to bring back stuff. So if you hit one of your cards that you didn't want to, Ghost Rider brings stuff back, maybe brings back Dakin, brings back Silver Samurai. Do you think something like that, like a stat base version of the list that's more so caring about just good discard cards that have good stats as opposed to synergistic ones? Not to say it's not synergistic, but it's less so, I think, than traditional Dracula lists would be.
I don't know. I think that the most likely thing that we see appearing is the Lockjaw coming back to be able to get all these different activations. And then I think that maybe we see a little bit of a hybrid hand attack discard package get built up. People distill down what that core of discard is with like Swarm, Calling Wing, Moon Knight, and then Silver Samurai, Absorbing Man. And that situation could be looking pretty good. And then, of course, Black Bolt Stature as well. And you just decide on how far you lean into hand attack and how far you want discard. And you can kind of, you have a core on either side, and then you move the needle depending on your own preference or a little bit of a meta read. Because I think hand attack is the most exciting thing out of this guy. He could actually bring it into the forefront. I mean, we're looking at the Black Widow blocks a draw. We're looking at Moon Knight knocks a card out. Silver Samurai knocks a card out. Black Bolt knocks a card out. The Absorbing Man gives you extra consistency on any of these. And then suddenly the opponent just has one card on the final turn.
Yeah, and then you could probably run Ghost Rider on that list as well, because like if you, let's say you have Ghost Rider and Silver Samurai in hand, and then turn 3 you play your Moon Knight, if you hit one or the other, you're kind of fine. You hit Ghost Rider, it's a wash, doesn't matter. You hit Silver Samurai, you go, cool, my turn 4 play is Ghost Rider now. I get 8 power in this lane and still get my discard off, still get my hand attack, and information as well. Again, what Moon Knight in this does, and of course, I'm going to say, I think I'm going to try this in the Info Maniac deck that I was talking about over on my side.
The overall power level of this deck feels like it's going to be below a lot of the other meta pieces, but obviously you're leveraging a lot of control against the opponent here, breaking up all of their combos if they are a combo deck. And because discards are public information, your info on snapping or retreating, if you're just not hitting what you need to hit, is so valuable that if you get enough reps in on this deck, I think like that learning curve of like I'm hitting enough or I'm not hitting enough can really get you over the edge on very intelligent snapping and retreating.
Yeah, and this seems like a very good conquest card to me.
Yeah.
Anything that provides information, that's why I think Mirage is a good conquest card. I think
Yeah.
even Cable at this point can be considered a decent conquest card. It's not as well statted, of course. I think Mirage is going to take precedent over him in most lists that can afford to run in that two drop slot, something around those kind of effects.
Yeah.
But information is very important. There's a reason that Stature Black Bolt, that combination of cards, very simple 2-card combo, has such a high win rate even still now today with the nurse that they suffered. A
Could
couple
you
months
imagine,
ago?
Brad, if they were their old forms, 8 and 7, baby? Come on, bring it back, bring it back. But I think it would be
Yeah.
too much. Like it's very good, and this deck looks pretty mean. The risk, right? The downside is you need to hit your combos more or less on curve. They're not doing anything for you on the final turn besides being
No.
understated, right? You need to build towards something for your final turn, and you have to get the disruption earlier. So this could be a good case for Chavez, honestly.
Yeah, Chavez could be great in this. It's hard to say what the definitive list would end up looking like in these type of like hand attack ones. I like the idea of Black Widow, maybe Iceman on one to just hit something. You're probably running Spider Ham in that as well. Yeah, just to get more info, especially in like a mirror match. We're probably gonna see a lot of APAC going around as well.
Do you want to see the Wave Odin combo come in? This was the old wild classic for the hand attack, is that you would Widow, Wave, Odin, and then you'd give them a 4-cost bite. And so they would either play a 0 power and get to draw, or they would not get an extra draw.
I mean, honestly, I don't hate it. I don't hate it, especially with that extra. It just gives another tool to it. So yeah, you're looking. Let's build it real quick. We got Iceman, we got Spider Ham, we got Black Widow. Okay, we got Dakin probably for stats. I think is fair, just to have a solid discard option with that shard. We have, of course, Silver Samurai. Okay, we have Wave. Then we have Odin.
And you can wave off curve a little bit, and then Odin to like on 5 to get a reactivation of any of your 3 costs.
Black Bolt, Stature. So now we're at 9.
Yeah.
What else are we looking at here? What are you thinking? Do we
need stats?
Moon Knight.
Yep.
Probably for more discard. And then you said want more stats. So then probably looking at like something like Spider-Man, just as like good stats early game, or like just a bridge.
Not bad.
And then
Not
Chavez to round it out.
Yeah. In my work, the hand attack is just so disgusting. It's all going to revolve around how much you're really breaking up their combos, right? Because I think your stats are still going to be coming in behind. Lad?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Laddie could play. And you could also fit in the Abs Man as another multiplier.
Yeah.
Did we already say that?
No. Okay. Interesting pivot.
All right.
What if we did a hand attack? We trim some of the probably what ends up being the fat. I would argue Moon Knight might be one of the first cuts you look at as you play the deck more and more.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is that we could lean more into discard, as I said, as a potential option here. We include Swarm Calling Wing, right?
Yeah, that's true. I was also thinking just like Forge Brood Absman.
It's really hard to build anything without Forge right now, guys. It's really hard.
Because it's just an easy, like, quick little, like, a small package. Like, again, we've already seen Stature Black Bolt be a package. And I do think that even Stature Black Bolt, Silver Samurai, and perhaps Dakin, those 4 cards could be their own package moving forward. I wouldn't be shocked by that. But I do think currently Forge, Absman, Brood is a package right now that you're seeing a lot of decks run. Of course, we have the Patriot Surfer list that's going around.
And sometimes it's even cutting the Surfer. It's crazy, but it's really good.
It's just the options that we have now with these cards are pretty impressive. But overall, if you have a viewer asking you, Teddy, should they go after Silver Samurai? Assuming they have the majority of it, like let's say they're only missing cards that are like maybe what? They already have Iron Lad, they already have Jeff, right?
They've already got these guys, because that's the other thing, is that this Spotlight Cash man is the champ of champs.
Is it?
Isn't it? Am I crazy about who it's releasing alongside? No.
I
Hang on.
mean,
This one has the Kitty Pride.
This is Kitty Pride in 2099.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So I was gonna say this Spotlight Cache is kind of ass.
Because you should have Kitty Pride already. 2099 doesn't play anywhere. Here's the thing: is that the Kitty Pride variant is fire.
I use it for thumbnails. I mean, well, I'm not very interested in Kitty Pride variants. That's one of those few cards I'm just like, if I throw it in a deck, I'm playing it. I'm not very passionate about that card. So I'm not too interested in getting.
Okay, yeah. So Silver Samurai, the Wedding Dress Kitty Pride, and then 2099. So we still need to hack 2099, and it's Silky Movement was like his shot at move, the best shot that move has, and it's not running any of these traditional move
no
engines.
one's tried it. I haven't seen anyone try to do like a Ghost Spider and then like 2099 package in there. Maybe Iron
maybe
Fist.
that's their shot if you're already running Craven, eh?
Yeah, you're running Craven and you're running Smooth, and again, at the end of the day, he is a 4/6.
Yep.
There's not very many of those left that actually have impactful abilities. You have the Thing. You have to be running with the High Evo to get his true potential being
Lad
reached.
is just like head and shoulders over everybody else.
Yep. White Queen has fallen out of favor quite a bit. And like then you have Spider-Man 2099. Am I missing
Colson and
any
Nick
other
Fury
4/6s?
ate White Queen's lunch, which is so sad because we're getting that beach bod variant. Oh man, Brad.
But we're also getting a noir Nick Fury to coincide with the other Maria Hill and Coulson noirs. So
Yeah.
But yeah, and so for this week, do you think this is we'll have 3 categories, okay? Again, trademark by Drew Berry, snap, pass, or buy with tokens. So snap, pass, or cash.
I like it. It's releasing Series 5 as are all cards this season, is our understanding. So my general recommendation is to crack open your caches first to be able to see these. Your token generation is just so low unless you are putting in a little bit of extra budget into the game to keep up with the token Tuesdays. It looks like the forecast is next month we're going to get a little bit of a reprieve on the token cost with, I think, one of the cards is releasing S5. 2 of them are scheduled to be S4. I'm not
According
sure.
to the data mine, yes.
It's subject to change. Last time it did change to be all S5, so don't put too much credence on this, but that is the forecast. I'm going to be opening up my caches for it, and I think part of it is because I do love this Kitty Pride variant, though.
That's fair. I mean, I had, to give you an example, the week that was, it was the Galactus variant, the Nimrod variant. Who was that week? What card was that week?
On Galactus?
Nimrod. Yeah,
that was the Battle Pass.
Nimrod.
That was Dakin in the Battle Pass, so it's Galactus, Nimrod, Spider-Ham.
Okay, so yeah, that first week I had all those cards. I opened 4 caches because I really liked all the variants, and I got all the variants.
Brad, no.
Yeah, I know.
No.
But then I skipped the next week. Saved up 4 caches. I bought I bought Deathstrike I bought her with tokens. And then opened 4 caches for X23. My current plan is to most likely looks like I'm gonna probably save up. I have currently 2 caches saved for this week. I think I'm gonna pull the trigger on both of them for Silver Samurai, because again, I am collection complete.
Yeah.
So if I hit, I hit. If not, no. Actually, you know what? No, I've changed my mind. I'm gonna token. I'm gonna skip next week because next week is Jeff. I already have Jeff. I don't need the null variant, and whatever the last one is, I
Ghost Spider. Venomized Ghost Spider.
So I'm skipping next week. I'm a hard skip, and then Eliath, I'm saving 4 of them for. So I have 1 or 2 saved up already. I'm gonna get to 4 for Eliath. Buy Samurai with token. So basically, suggestion to wrap up all of that just fucking insanity in a nice clean present with a nice little bow on top. If you have Jeff and you really like the effect of Samurai, I recommend going with tokens and saving caches for Eliath, because I think he's going to be a very impactful card for the meta. Okay, because that's 2 weeks.
I can't wait to talk about future card releases.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to save that for next week.
But we will. I'm just giving a little. If we gotta give recommendations, we gotta include all the context, right?
Yes, 100%. Because I think if you don't have Jeff, you're gonna prioritize Jeff over Samurai right now.
Yes, agreed. So if you don't have Jeff, skip this week, save your caches, get Jeff next week, and then you'll figure out Eliath from there.
Yeah.
If you have Jeff and you don't care about Samurai, save for Eliath. Otherwise, as far as token spending for Eliath, for Samurai.
Here's the problem, man. Here's the problem is that the Eliath cache might be worse. It has Snow Guard.
Yeah, well,
And new Hitmonkey, which is also like the most so underwhelming.
That's why, but I think that's why that's a cache where it's like you need all four because you got to guarantee you hit Eliath because I think
the other stuff is not going to give you value.
No, and he's worth it, right? The same way that I would say Jeff is worth it to hit all of them because they're both going to be Series 5. Jeff is still 6,000. Eliath is definitely going to be 6,000.
Yeah.
So that's where I would go from there. I wouldn't mind recommending if you're on the fence about Samurai, you kind of like the effect, you're not sure, hold off for a little bit. If you have the intention of doing with tokens, I should say, right? And you're not really willing to spend your caches, hold off for maybe a week or two, see where people figure them out. Because I do think this is going to be a tougher puzzle to solve than you would initially think because it's power, not cost.
Yeah, we've had a really spotty record on the new cards coming out and immediately being good. Legion is really the only Smash success story, I feel like. X23 has done pretty well. But Destroy overall was in a great spot for her to release into. So she was getting really hyped up, and I think people cooled on her a little bit. Of course, still the tournament finish for the X23 Deadpool looks fantastic, though for that card's longevity
extra
in the
lines,
Destroy package.
Like yeah, I don't think she's necessarily worth 6,000 tokens personally. I think she's super niche in terms of where she's played because it's a pretty much just Thanos Destroy or Classic Destroy with Nimrod and stuff like that, just to get the extra ability to go Deadpool into Null on turn 6 or whatever.
Which
I think
is nice.
It's very nice. Don't get me wrong. I love going Deadpool Taskmaster, but sometimes I'm like, well, but the Null is sitting at 46, Deadpool's at 33. It feels bad. So. Yeah, that'd be nice. But overall, I think X23 is a little bit of it's just very good at what she does, but very niche in what she does. Yeah. And I do agree with you. There's not very many hits where it's like, oh my God. Look at Silk. It took her 2 months to become a relevant card. And that's a card
but
I got.
But then she
6,
did make it.
Yeah.
So, if you guys are still looking for validation on this week, this week's looking really good. I mean, Silk is standing in the top meta deck. Rivaled, of course, but one of them. Nebula's been great, always been great. And X23, I think, has found a stride. It's you have to love playing Destroy to want X23, but then across the board, we're looking at great cards here. And 2 great variants. The thing about buying Silver Samurai with tokens, now I'm very excited for Silver Samurai, but it's also going to be a niche card. Looking farther ahead at Renslayer and Mobius, you have the energy cheat and the anti-energy cheat. Energy cheat, always been meta. Anti-energy cheat sounds explode.
Those are supposed to be the 3,000 ones, right? As a current stand, both Renslayer and Mobius.
Yeah.
Eliath is the one that's 5,000.
So I'd be checking your stockpiles, and Loki season looks like it goes hard in the paint.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of Death and Taxes type of decks and stuff like that. I'm from Magic and stuff. I love those kind of decks. So seeing Mobius potentially be something like that. We've yet to see how he works with Wave. Of course, Glenn and all of them don't like to acknowledge the effects of data mined cards. They like to ignore their existence for the time being.
Well, so yeah, it's they understand that they're out there, but it's company policy that partially for Glenn's workload, he will not comment on interactions for cards that have not been officially released.
Yeah.
As soon as we get that that next season reveal from the developers, it's open season, and I'm sure that he's actually probably prepping a statement to go live right alongside the release, because that the FAQ is going to roll up, and so we'll be able to talk about it for sure there. I'm on the camp of he will work in a synergistic way with Wave, that if you have Mobius and they play Wave, your cards are not increased and the enemy cards are not decreased. So it's going to be the Wombo turn 5.
So
he's even statted to be able to be played together on turn 5. It looks intentional.
True. I had a post on Twitter or whatever saying I don't think it's going to work that way. I'd be shocked if it does because it would.
Get ready to be shocked, Brad.
Yeah, it would effectively bring back an interaction with Wave they didn't want, like essentially that Death Wave style of a deck. The
Is
whole reason they
back.
changed Wave.
It
Yeah, so
actually would be back.
that's what I'm saying. That's why I was saying I don't think it would work that way. However,
Now,
if it turns out it works and I'm wrong, I am more than happy to admit that I'm wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. If you want to still send me death threats for being wrong, like people love to do lately on Twitter,
listen, the Can't Stop
please.
Snapping community is very supportive. Do not give the Brad the hate mail here. The thing is that, like, part of the reason that combo was so good is it was very simple, right? This time you have to have one more piece, which in Snap we've seen just adding that one element of complexity means it's less consistent, and then it falls apart. And it really falls apart if you don't have all the pieces here. So there's some padding here. What I would love to see She-Hulk get a little... She doesn't even get much of a bump up, though, because then, well, you'd have to set up Mobius much earlier in the game, as I'm trying to think of, like, how much you can resurrect that specific Deathwave deck. It's going to be hard. But other applications can certainly be there.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. I think it's going to be really cool to watch. And but yeah, I hope we gave enough of a idea for what we feel about Silver Samurai and this week's Spotlight Cash. It's going to be a fun one moving forward. Honestly, the next few months are going to be a blast for Snap content and Snap cards and things like that. Like I said
100%.
earlier, the future looks bright, and we hope you're there with us for that too.
Oh yeah, high on Silver Samurai, but being very cautious on the 6K tokens or cash expenditure with how excited we are about what's to come. Make sure you're in a good spot to grab what you want so that you're not going to miss out on these future things, and then pick yourself up a Samurai. He looks pretty dope.
All right. Well, Teddy, that's going to do it for us here. Are you excited for moving forward? Are you excited to be back with the podcast on a regular schedule?
I'm super excited. Been away for too long. Soundgarden. Oh, Brad, talking about metal. Universal Studios is the most metal interpretation of a Marvel city you can ever imagine. Now, you might be telling me, no, Teddy, you don't think it's real metal because it's an amusement park with general audiences and small families. Brad, the heroes entered for their meet and greet to Show Me What You Got by Powerman 5000. I was like, great. I know this song, and I never thought I would hear it. Every single speaker was blasting. And then the villains came into Indestructible by Disturbed.
That's great.
Dr. Doom and Green Goblin running through the streets. I loved it.
Were there any rides that you just said no, not going on that? Nope.
Every single one I get motion sick real bad.
Oh, okay.
I rode Hagrid's and the Velocicoaster, and that was... I'm good for one ride in the morning, and then I'm just taking nausea medication and hanging out the rest of the day. Like, I enjoy roller coasters, but my stomach and head only take one.
So no Hulk for you?
No Hulk for me. No thank you.
No Dr. Doom's Freefall Tower?
No. I've ridden Superman at Six Flags. That was good.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then the Amazing Spider-Man 2, that one's like the screen ride. That's even worse for me, so that was a no-go.
Oh, really? So no Transformers either, which, by the way, if anyone wants to go to Universal and they check out the Transformers ride, it's basically just a rip-off of the Spider-Man ride. And
no Transformers for me. But the wife saw the guy in costume of Optimus Prime, and she was
Those are awesome.
I kind of want to watch Transformers now. I was like, well, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, that was it. She saw a guy in the Optimus Prime costume, and she's like, okay, we're watching Transformers.
Yeah, I love Universal. It's like I'm always when it comes to like getting tickets, because again I'm right here, so I can just drive over to Orlando. Whenever I get like season passes or whatever, like annual passes or whatever for amusement parks, always chose Islands of Adventure and Universal because I vibe way more with that stuff. Like I used to go to Disney a lot as a kid. Again, my dad basically through his work got tickets essentially for free.
Nice.
So we would go like all the time, and I'm kind of done with it. I did that through my childhood. I know it's a little bit of a first world problem, but like, look, my parents dragged me.
You are in amusement park paradise, right where you're at.
Yeah, it's great. I'd have to find them somewhere, but we have Disney pins that say like "Congrats on your 100th visit" or whatever. So like, and I got that when I was like 9, and essentially that's again I don't. every weekend was almost every weekend, maybe every other weekend was a Disney day for my dad, because he hated sitting around the house, which is weird because now he loves sitting around the house. So I don't know.
Get out and do it. And honestly, when you're like able to space out your visits, it's way more fun.
Yes.
There's way less pressure. You're not there trying to get there at the very beginning and then close the park down and just ending up exhausted and with heat stroke, and be able to just, pick out what you enjoy. You know you're going to come back later.
Yeah, so stay hydrated. That's the big thing. No matter where you are, whether it's Florida or
No,
wherever.
Dexter has copyrighted that. Come on, Brad.
Oh my goodness. You can't copyright a basic human need. We love Dexter.
Everybody's got their thing. Everybody's got their thing.
Yeah. So, well, thank you guys so much for watching. You are the best. We love you. We appreciate you. And we hope you enjoy us on the next week when we talk about some other interesting things. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything, but we'll get there.
We got exciting plans.
Yep. See you then, guys.
Don't stop snapping.